Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the critically acclaimed Pop the Trunk Podcast Hall of Fame. Recency Bias Radio with me, of course, is your humble host, Dave Smith, Pretty Boy Smitty, Protocol Paul, Pearl Game Ultra, Smith Dog Trail, TheRantGod, Hotep Thanos, Metro Kaiba, all of the above on that ISET test and ACT. You know what it is. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back from the dead to lead the people that I once led to discuss some Big Brother 22 All-Stars. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're used to how I do things over here, I am the trendsetter for everything there is preseason discussion of Big Brother because I created my own algorithm, my own scoring based ranking system, ladies and gentlemen, where I rank each player before the season starts out of 5 categories. Each category has 5 maximum stars you can gain from it, ladies and gentlemen. And this entire process has become known as WTF, aka worst to first, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let me please explain what these 5 categories entail before I get to breaking down this All Stars cast. That way, you can fully follow where I'm coming from with the way I break everything down. Now, understand, ladies and gentlemen, each player that I will dissect is broken down to their ability to adapt, their knowledge of the game, their social game and likability, their pre-game strategy, and their initial threat level. These 5 things make up 5 infinity stones that tell me whether someone has a trajectory to be successful or they have the highest trajectory to do terrible in this competition. Now, a few things can come into play like production, and I try my best not to predict who production's gonna nut hug. But just understand this, ladies and gentlemen. This next hour and change you're gonna spend with me is gonna be well worth it. I care so much about my audience, I'm not even gonna watch the live move-in episode. Instead, I've spent the last 5 hours maybe coming up with my criteria and analysis of this entire cast because I want to make sure every single person who rocks with my channel is as woke and intelligent as they possibly can be when they jump into these different forums and threads discussing the game, ladies and gentlemen. What can I say? I spoil my fan base. I spoil my community. So without further ado, let's get into it because that's what you're here for. Now, before I start breaking down each player, I do this at the beginning of every worst to first. I give you all an average rating by season. So, for instance, I did the WTF 3 different times in the past. I did it for Celebrity Big Brother US 2. I did it for Big Brother Canada 7, and I also did it from Big Brother 21. At the end of this video, I'll be sure to leave it in the end screen. That way, y'all can check all those out for some references. Now, my Celebrity Big Brother US 2, the average rating by player that season was 15.75 out of 25. Pretty decent. Big Brother Canada 7 was a 17.71 out of 25 per average player. And Big Brother 21, the season I boycotted but still did a WTF on before I realized it was BB15 2.0, that season was a 17.44 out of 25. So, ladies and gentlemen, this being an all-star season, we expect the number to eclipse the 2 previous numbers of Big Brother Canada 7 and Big Brother 21. I'm here to announce for all of y'all that Big Brother 22 has a whopping 18.44 rating out of 25, ladies and gentlemen. That means the average player on this season is at least 1 point better than all of the BB21 players averaged out. Now, considering BB21 was a total train wreck, this could also be a cautionary tale that this season could be one. But I'm going into this optimistic, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's get into it. So, in 16th place, the player with the worst chance to win this season by far, ladies and gentlemen, it is none other than David the Black Spider-Man Alexander, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be honest here. Even if my channel is pro-black in philosophy, I'm unbiased. And that's why the channel is called Recency Bias Radio. And I would be remiss not to mention the fact that clearly David is only on this season to check a box. And look, in my last video, I was very demanding that you put a straight black man on this cast because it's unacceptable if you don't. So understand, ladies and gentlemen, the position I come from is simple. It's better to have someone undeserving on this cast than to have no representation at all. But let's get down to this breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. David Alexander has 12 stars out of a possible 25. He's by far the worst player on the season. And he's from a season I'd argue was so bad, it should have no representation at all from it on All Stars to begin with. He's only on this season because Robin Cass ruined the talent pool for straight black men with over 20 years of picking us based off stereotypes and not archetypes. This is facts, not opinion. Now, as a result of this, casting found themselves in a pickle. Do they keep straight black men off this season and risk another boycott from the black community? Or do they give us someone to root for and keep playing this plausible deniability card? That aforementioned scenario was far too risky for them to do during this pandemic, so they chose the lesser of two evils. This doesn't mean they have changed or turned a quarter for the better. It just means they didn't have a choice, ladies and gentlemen. They couldn't afford to do All Stars without a straight black man because CBS Viacom is trying to rebrand themselves as not being racist. This inner conflict of ethics is why David is on this season. Even though I don't believe he is good enough to qualify as an All Star selection, I still think it's better to pick someone undeserving than to not include straight black men altogether. David played on BB21 where he was completely screwed over by the Apex production pet in Jackson Mickey. Jackson went on to win the season, which shows production always finds a way to make sure racists are successful in the game. Removing the excuse of plausible deniability and benign neglect from the fray. Gina Marie made Final 2 in BB15. Jackson won the game. BB15 and BB21 are both known for being toxic seasons with little to no replayability to them. This is why I personally believe no All Star should have represented 21, like there is no All Star from 15, but I digress. It's important for me to point out David was targeted for no reason in 21 because 21 had a counselor twist where the House had to vote for the first HOH essentially. But because David tried to campaign against Jackson for the power of the first HOH, Jackson never trusted him from that point further, which led to David being the first boot. David wasn't a terrible player in 21 per se. In fact, I'd argue he was much more equipped to do well than Kimmy was, despite what a lot of Kimmy fans would like to say. But let's be real here. It's a double standard. Um, Most straight black men suffer the same fate on Big Brother US as David did in 21. For this reason, he may be coming into 22 All Stars in a very good position because no one should have him on their radar. Also, he didn't play long enough his season for anyone to know his strategy well enough to counter it. So David benefits mostly from the element of surprise, even though I still don't think his chances of winning are very high, ladies and gentlemen. His best chance to make jury involves him working with Nicoracle from 21 and Dave Hahn. The new school players in general have an advantage, so I look for the Black Spider-Man to be fine as long as he doesn't try to gain power early. David had 18 stars going into 21, but now with his recency bias radio roster update, let me patent that real quick. He only has 12 stars coming out of 21 into All Stars. This score is by far the worst score of the season, and it explains why he's in last place. Coming into 21, I had high hopes for David, that he could adapt, but he couldn't. This made me reassess his game completely, making his skills fall from 5 stars to 3. His excuse me, his knowledge of the game got no better because he was booted first, and his social game and likability loses a star because all the other All Stars will know he doesn't deserve his spot. The prejudice Dave dealt with should not negatively impact his whole score because he can't control the gameplay of a bigoted player like Jackson Mickey. This is why only his initial threat level got better, even though his ability to adapt got worse, giving David a mere 12 stars out of 15. His threat level only improved because he's the only first boot making this season. The first All Stars was dominated by Mike Boogie and Erica, who both benefited from low threat levels compared to their competition, of course. Will David be able to play possum and take advantage of the same low expectations? Comment below and give me your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So David had 5 stars in the ability to adapt, 1 star in knowledge of the game. I still believe he's a recruit. 4 stars in the social game and likability aspect. 3 in the pre-game strategy, and he had 5 stars in his initial threat level. Let's just be honest. At the end of the day, coach, you're a black man. You know what I'm saying? Hold up, I think that might be off. Huh? His threat level. Oh, I see why. I see why. Yeah, technically it did get better, but technically by my scoring system, that means it got worse if you get more stars. So I did nothing wrong there. Oh, no, no, that was his previous ranking. My bad, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so let me provide the previous ranking because for certain players that I've done in the prior, I did provide the previous with the new one. Now, he was previously 5 stars in the adaptation, 1 in knowledge of the game, 4 in social game likability, 3 in pregame strategy, 5 in initial threat level. That's going into 21. Going into 22, he's 3 stars in the ability to adapt, still 1 star in knowledge of the game, 3 stars in social game and likability, 3 stars in pregame strategy, and 2 stars in initial threat level. I just wanted to go ahead and correct that. Now, in 15th place, ladies and gentlemen, we have Christmas Rousey Abbott, ladies and gentlemen. She has the second worst chance of winning this season. She has no Paul. She has no Paul Beta Hamey, and she has no I know business to help shield her. She's walking into a den of wolves, ladies and gentlemen, and she don't got the squad she used to jump people with no more. In fact, I'd argue Tyler Suffles is suffering the same type of fate she is, but let's get into Christmas, why I ranked her so low. Ladies and gentlemen, she only got 13 stars out of 25. Okay? I'm just telling y'all that to show y'all, oh, she's in for a rude awakening. Now, Christmas is the worst woman ranked on this season by my score-based ranking system for a reason. She, like Josh, played very dependent games, relying on Paul more often than not to handle the social side for them so they could focus solely on winning comps and disrupting everyone else's strategies. From a potential standpoint, Christmas has a high chance of winning comps. This is the only reason she isn't last place because she has no known connections coming into this season. It's very possible that she could work with Cody, seeing how his brother Paulie is close to Paul. But outside of that twice removed connection, I'm struggling to find potential allies for her on All Stars. Her personality can be quite pushy. She has tendencies to be confrontational. Some believe her foot injury from BB19 helped her game because she was able to appear weaker than she did earlier on, allowing for Paul to rig an HOH for her to win, that involved running, by the way, and for her to have 2 separate arcs in her season. She went from the overbearing bully with brute strength to injured, vulnerable woman seeking vengeance, essentially. Production helped her a lot in BB19 because she was linked to Paul. She should have been medevac when she broke her foot, but they essentially allowed her to cast a vote to evict someone on the cell phone. Y'all remember that? When Julie Chen put her on hold? Like, I actually have a rap song called Foo Foo based off the BB19 season. If you've never watched that, ladies and gentlemen, go check that out. Because in that song, I even mentioned how they let her cast a vote, then they put her on hold. You feel what I'm saying? Now, but with there being no Paul on All Stars, it's safe to say she will get no production priority this time around, making her a sitting duck for anyone winning HOH before a jury, because targeting her leads to the least amount of scrutiny or blood. She made it all the way to the end of BB19 with Josh and Paul, arguably 2 of the most despised Big Brother US players of the current era. I think Christmas is guilty by association until she shows us she was a product of that season, until she shows us she wasn't a product of that season's environment. But most importantly, she must show this cast she is willing to earn their respect. If you look at the women on this cast, women like Danny Donato or Janelle would be wise to weaponize Christmas against the rest of the new school players. The way I see it, Christmas either works with the older school women or she works with Cody and Davon. This game will be decided based on which side can work with the players who are expected floaters. In Big Brother 19, her ability to adapt was never tested because she was always on production's side. Because of this, she scores so low here. Her knowledge of the game was always relying on Paul's knowledge of it, and in my book, secondhand knowledge only happens with recruits, making her incapable of anything more than 3 stars. Her likability in social game is truly her weakest skill coming into All Stars. This is what Paul handled so well for her, so she could focus on comps in 19. If she can conquer the social aspect of the game, her potential can shine through, and her initial threat level will always be a 5 because she's Christmas Rousey, giving Christmas a solid 13 out of 25 stars. Now, will Christmas flourish with no Paul to feed off of? Or will she crumble having to play the game without all that production priority of years past? Comment below and give me your thoughts on Christmas. Now, her ability to adapt was 2 stars. Her knowledge of the game was 2 stars. Her social game and likability, 2 stars. Her pregame strategy, 2 stars. Her initial threat level, 5 stars. Let's keep it a bean. Now, in 14th place, ladies and gentlemen, oh, I can hear it now. People gonna be triggered by this. We have Bailey Dayton. Yeah, I said it. Bailey Dayton is the third worst player on this season. And if you don't agree with me, sorry, you're not analyzing this season well enough because she's not that good. All right, let's just keep it a bean. Now, ironically, Bailey is in 14th place with 14 stars. That wasn't done by design, ladies and gentlemen. It just happened that way. I tell you all the time, I do not allow my biases to affect how I judge someone's game in a vacuum. Now, I'm gonna be honest. Bailey is a tough player to analyze. On the surface, she has tons of untapped potential from her past of winning beauty pageants and her ability to win the crowd over. But where she always goes wrong and is in her need to be accepted. In Big Brother 20, Bailey tried so hard to belong, she almost was in 3 different showmances before the end of the first week. She flirted with Tyler, Casey, and Chris, but ended up on the wrong side of votes all the time with Chris and the Hive, aka Foul Tay. I mean, even when she was the HOH, she was on the wrong side of the votes. Like I'm saying, the more I think about the game level 6 played, it's something to be commended. I may not have been rooting for him at the time, but man, look, they made these people look so stupid. You know, I'm just being honest. Now, she tends to put her trust far too often in white women that don't have her best interests at heart. Some of that is because production didn't give her a black woman to play with her first season. But when you look at Bailey's performance on the challenge Total Madness, it's safe to say she is more comfortable playing with white people than black people. She trusted Haley, Rockstar, and Caitlyn up until Caitlyn betrayed their alliance for Lifeguard Jesus. And let's be real here, Haley and Rockstar have both betrayed her as well down the line. Now, Haley, she has played it a little bit more political and more safe now. She's more on her good side, but let's be real, Rockstar betrayed them. And Caitlyn betrayed them before the season could even end. So it just goes to show their judgment skills is very poor when it comes to white folks. I'm not trying to make this about a race thing. I'm just saying this is a flaw in Bailey's gameplay. The fact that she's so trusting of people who don't look like her, and then when there's someone who does look like her, she ain't really that quick to play ball. Now, then after Tyler got Caitlyn to do that, oh, my fault. She trusted Haley, Rockstar, and Caitlyn up until Caitlyn betrayed their alliance for Lifeguard Jesus. Then after Tyler got Caitlyn to do that, Bailey bought his excuse that Caitlyn manipulated him, and it wasn't the other way around. Bailey is also far too trusting of people she flirts with. She expected Casey and Tyler to be loyal to her, even though she curved both of them for their enemy, who was Chris. This entitlement that accompanies her strategy is always her biggest Achilles heel, and it stems from her spoiled life up until Big Brother. Her need to be accepted and liked is what makes her it's what made her trust Angela after Angela already turned on Rachel, who Bailey made a deal with to be a pawn the same week she was evicted, by the way. This shows Bailey is bad at connecting dots strategically, and she doesn't excel at counting votes either. I mean, do you all remember how many weeks they couldn't count the votes and they kept assuming Scotty was turning on them? And they kept assuming someone else was turning on them when really all the votes pointed towards no, that side is just staunch together. But Bailey couldn't wrap her head around it because she thought, oh, because I was in a bed with KC once, she'll be loyal to me forever. I mean, it's like, yo, you think a cuddle session means that you're owed so much? Like, come on, man, let's stop this. Now, I can understand her falling for the lies once, but she consistently fell for level six's lies all season until she got blamed for the hacker twist Haley failed to get Tyler out while using. For someone with so much clout, Bailey is such a below average player at best. And on the challenge, her game got even worse because she became dependent on superior players carrying her to the end. She allowed West to control her entire game after West created a racist lie about Davon in a past season. This tells me Bailey doesn't care at all about Davon heading into this season, and it also tells me for a black couple who got all their clout from the black community, they do not stay on code at all with black folks. And what makes it worse is there are so many groupies out here who defend them blindly no matter what they do, right or wrong. How will these groupies defend Bailey if Davon chooses not to work with her? Will they throw Davon under the bus? Will they label Davon anti-black to protect Bailey's image? Or will they keep it real about Bailey kissing the white power structure's ass this season? This is what I'm most interested in heading into this All-Stars. If you ask around, Bailey might have more clout, but Davon has more respect from purists of the game. And that goes for the challenge and Big Brother, by the way. Davon didn't need a showman's to go viral. She went viral on her own, leaving the game, right? Davon never needed production's help to reach a final on the challenge either. So all the people who just assume these two black women will align don't know the details surrounding them. Bailey is young and easily influenced by others. Davon is more seasoned and cerebral. I don't mean to be a party pooper here, but a big reason why Bailey is ranked so low is because this is an older cast who won't relate to her or acquiesce to her entitled needs. With the majority of players on this season being far superior to Bailey strategically, she will have to learn when and when not to speak her mind. And with Tyler being on this season, I fully expect Bailey to play the predictable game of working with him, just like she tried to work with Josh and KC on Total Madness. I expect Tyler to entertain Bailey as long as he needs to, because that's what he did last time he played with her. But he will remember losing but he will remember her costing him $500,000, and that will be the reason Bailey flops this season as well. Her only connection on the season has no reason to trust her outside of the obvious. If Danielle Reyes was on this season, Bailey might have a higher chance of making the jury, and it might affect how I rank her based off her social game. But with there only being her and Davon there to represent black women, I just don't see enough there for both women to trust each other over the entire season. Bailey must come correct and check. Excuse me. Bailey must come correct and check her ego, or she won't make it past day 21. Only thing keeping her slightly ranked above Christmas is the potential connection with Tyler. Her ability to adapt is 2 out of 5 because she's never worked her way out of the bottom before. Her knowledge of the game scores the same because anyone promising Rachel that she's a pawn and Rachel goes home when you're HOH isn't a true historian of the game. Her social game and likability is really her only chance to perform well. In theory, her massive following should help her if there's an America's vote, so that's why she scores so high on likability. As for pregame strategy, she's very limited in how she approaches the first week. Anything that doesn't include Tyler in it is very risky, and even working with Lifeguard Jesus is a risk in itself. Her initial threat level is easily 5 stars because of her potential and size alone, but when you add the fact that she's black, there's no way for her to realistically float. And like I've always said, black people can't be floaters on Big Brother. We're always a target, and we're always expected to be working with the other black person on the season. And that's what I mean by we can't float, right? We would have to be on a season with nobody else is black to be considered a floater. Because someone always thinks we're up to no good, and that comes with the stereotype, right? Now anyway, let's continue. So making her a target from day one, giving Bailey a solid 14 stars out of 25. Will Bailey kowtow to white players on AllStars or stay on code with Davon and David? Is she on this season to win or for money to pay for her wedding ceremony? Would she let black superfans down again with terrible gameplay? Comment below and give me your thoughts. Now, like I said, her ability to adapt was 2, her knowledge of the game was 2, her social game and likability was 4, her pregame strategy was a 1, because she doesn't have many options to pregame strategize with. Josh and Casey were removed from the deck. And her initial threat level are a 5 out of 5, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's get into 13th place, ladies and gentlemen. This might also surprise some of y'all, but I don't really think the majority of the RBR subscribers are going to be surprised by this ranking at all. At 13th place, we have Memphis the Renegade Garrett with 15 stars. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just be honest here. Memphis is a polarizing player, and he tends to rub women the wrong way with his tactics, right? Now, Dan took advantage of Memphis's poor jury management skills by choosing him over Keisha to take to the end of BB10. He and Dan formed the Renegades, the first real two-person alliance since Chilltown that ran the game. Memphis often gets overlooked for his contributions to Dan's game, but he clutched lots of comps so Dan could focus on the big moves. Without Memphis, Dan doesn't win the game in the end, let alone makes the end. In a lot of ways, Memphis was to Dan who Cody was to Derek. He was the bad cop to Dan's good cop, and that's the reason why Memphis scores so low. It's because he never saw he was being played by Dan at any point to cut Dan. And Dan was so smart to keep all of Memphis's enemies around longer to force Memphis to rely on Dan to smooth things out with Jerry and Rennie. Okay? And with this All-Stars cast being as old as it isn't far-fetched to expect Memphis to be at a disadvantage, even with Keisha's inclusion. Sure, Memphis has an implied ally from day one, but he also doesn't have the person who linked him to Keisha and Dan. Memphis is someone who needs a guy to work with to play at his best, but who on this cast would work with him? Only person I could think of is Enzo or maybe Cody, but there is a small chance Ian could know Memphis through Dan. So don't rule out the possibility that Ian could work with both Keisha and Memphis. And if Dan went through that much trouble, he probably also introduced them to Janelle, who comes with Kaser. So Memphis's best shot at playing well involves Ian Terry, believe it or not. That's who Memphis should be looking to work with the most, ladies and gentlemen. I think anyone who's a former winner should be heavily sought after to work with because the odds of someone rewarding them as the first two-time winner are very slim to none unless you play perfect. Because we've seen Dan. He thought he had it figured out. He thought he had the second win in the bag. Ian yoked him. Okay? Now, Memphis is middle of the road in the ability to adapt, knowledge of the game, and pregame strategy with 3 stars each, respectfully. But his social game is his biggest flaw, scoring only 1 star out of the 5. His initial threat level is a 5 because he made Final 2 and he's one of the better comp beasts among the men, giving Memphis a solid 15 stars out of 25. Now, will Memphis learn from his mistakes in Big Brother 10? Will he replace Dan with Ian because it's his best chance to make the end? Or will he just predictably work with Keisha? Please comment below and give me your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, Memphis and the ability to adapt, 3 stars. Knowledge of the game, 3 stars. Social game, 1 star. Pre-game strategy, 3 stars. Initial threat level, 5 stars. Now, let's get to 12th place, ladies and gentlemen. I know y'all don't got all the time in the world. I know y'all want to get back to these feeds. That's why I'm trying my best to give y'all the Cliff's notes. I spent time writing these notes a certain way so no one could question my authority. You feel it, dig me? In 12th place, ladies and gentlemen, we have Nicole Anthony, aka the Nicorical. It's funny. I was one of the first people who saw the potential in this girl's game. Like I ranked her top 5, I think, before BB21. I ranked Cliff Hogg top 3. I ranked Jackson Mickey top 2. I ranked and I ranked that other girl. I forgot her name. I don't know if her name is Christina. I forgot the other girl's name. Christy. That's her name. Christy. Mystic Murph. I ranked her number 1. So it's funny. A lot of times this WTF might seem far fetched, but by the time the season's over, you look back at this and you go, bro, this man is Negro Damas. Well, anyway, Nicole Anthony, aka the Nicorical, she gets 16 stars and she's in 12th place, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to be fair to Nicole, I didn't see much of her season to truly gauge how good of a player she truly is. Because if she was a better player than I expected her to be for my last WTF. But what I can say is she played a good game, but it was a good game where she benefited from other players playing racist games. This is usually a red flag for me because oftentimes when someone appears to be the only likable player on a terrible season, it usually means they aren't that likable themselves. The bar is just so low that they cleared it. You feel what I'm saying? In Nicole's case, she aligned with Cliff when both of them were on the bottom, and she made up ground on the majority alliance fairly well. She fooled Tommy and Christy into thinking she wasn't someone they had to take seriously, and this is how she ended up working with Jackson to get rid of them. Unfortunately, she chose to work with the one guy production would never allow her to beat. So this is why she has another chance, but no one from that toxic season does besides David, who was also a victim of that same toxic season. She has a massive target on her back because her season is the most recent in everyone's mind. And when you add the context of her not having anyone she knows on the season besides First Boot and David, she is really behind the 8 ball strategically. The one thing she's got going for her, though, is she plays best when she's counted out. So hopefully, for her sake, ladies and gentlemen, Big Brother 22 will be similar to 21 if she can align with the right people. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is Nicole ranked above Memphis when Memphis has more pivoting prowess, Dave? Let me explain. It's because Memphis also has a higher chance of ruining his own game. It's true, though. Nicole doesn't put her foot in her mouth because she's a patient player. Her game is more conducive to an all-stars roster where everyone is a target. Physically, she's quite diminutive as well. This also contributes to her initial threat level not being as high as it could have been, especially when she's the most recent, like, America's favorite player. The reason why I was so high on Nicorical before 21 was because she didn't have a set plan for playing the game. Her plan was to not have one and to just adjust, aka adapt. Okay? Her best chance at this season involves all the newer school players from newer seasons working together to pick off all the older All-Stars. Then only after doing that can the Nicorical become one of the most dangerous players in the game. But she must play things safe and secure a jury spot before making a big move. That is key. Her ability to adapt falls from 5 stars to 4 with my new recency bias radio exclusive roster update. Her knowledge of the game stays a perfect score, and her social likability went up from 3 stars to 5 after BB21. But unfortunately, her pregame strategy takes a massive hit this time around because of her very limited options. So she went from 5 stars to 1 star there, and her initial threat level improved by 1 star because there are much more threatening women on this season at the start of the game, giving the Coracle a solid 16 stars out of 25. So, will Nicole play the same way she did on 21? Does David being on the season help or hinder her game? Could someone like Danny Donato take her under her wing and try to make her into another Portia? Or does she end up being a floater that waits for her time to strike? Please comment below and give me your thoughts on Nicole, ladies and gentlemen. Nicole Anthony, to be specific. Now, let me break down her previous score compared to her current score, ladies and gentlemen. Before I broke down the BB21 cast, I gave Nicole 5 stars in the ability to adapt. Now, in current time, she's 4 stars in that category. I gave her 5 stars in knowledge of the game. She stayed at 5 stars in current time. I gave her social game likability 3 stars a year ago. Now it's a 5 star because she won an America's favorite player. I had her as a 5 star in pregame strategy before, but now it's a 1 because she's coming into this game as the hunted, no longer the hunter, right? People know there's going to be some type of America's vote for some type of a twist. You do not want someone with all that recency bias like a Nicorical in your season for long because she will yoke you out of that twist, and before you know it, she's sending you packing and you're in the shadow realm, coach. I'm just keeping it a beam. And of course, her initial threat level went from 2 stars heading into 21 down to a 1 star, ladies and gentlemen, now. At the end of the day, her initial threat level is non-existent. The only thing that makes her seem like a threat is the fact that she's recent, ladies and gentlemen. So, anyway, let's get to 11th place, ladies and gentlemen. The 11th place player with 17 stars goes to Kaysar Mr. Strategic Rija. I believe that's how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I rock with Kaysar the long way. He is one of the many reasons why I became a Big Brother fan. BB6 made a fan out of me. Most of the credit I got to give to my big brother, but at the end of the day, man, I remember Michael telling Eric, "You have a small penis." Memories like that you remember forever, dog. But anyway, all right, so let's get it in. Let's get it in, coach. Hold on, I kind of lost my spot in the notes for a second. All right. Now, I have a soft spot for Kaysar because he was part of the first alliance I ever cared for in Big Brother history. But just because I rock with dude doesn't mean he's getting any preferential treatment in my score-based ranking system. Kaysar hasn't played the game in over a dozen years. Game rust is a real thing, and no one on this season will be as rusty as him. This means he will have to work twice as hard socially to relate, even if the cast is older than usual. Luckily for him, though, G.I. Janie is also back to have his 6. And that's a huge reason why Kaysar is ranked above Nicorical in Memphis, even though he never made it farther in the game than either of them. Kaysar is Mr. Strategic. That was like his favorite word on the first AllStars. I swear, every other sentence was, "We have to do what's strategic. The strategic move." He loves saying strategic, coach. He had Chilltown pissed at him, okay? But where Kaysar tends to go wrong is when he plays the game too safe. Kaysar, in theory, could have been Dan before Dan if he was a little bit more cutthroat. Kaysar's problem oftentimes is in his need to make sure women like him. He was screwed over by Erica and AllStars by thinking they had something when she always had something with Boogie, who despised Kaysar. Also, he was screwed over by Jennifer and BB6. So Kaysar needs to play more aggressive and also be less trusting of women to reach his full potential. Now, I'm not saying he needs to play like Memphis. I'm just saying I'm just saying he needs to be a little bit smarter, all right? Now that he's older, I think women won't be a problem for his game because there won't be any showmances in all likelihood. But that doesn't change the fact that Kaysar has moments of timidity that can't happen again if he wants to win this season. Kaysar and Janelle have a lot of ways they can approach this season. Most young players will idolize him. So when, excuse me, so it may be in their best interest to use that to their advantage. Also, it's highly likely if production does interfere to choose a side, it will be the side of the 2-time All-Stars. Or in Janelle's case, 4-time All-Stars. Oh, well, technically she played 4 times, but this is only the second All-Star. So yeah, this is 2-time All-Stars. I've already mentioned the idea of Ian playing a role in their games, but what other options do they have if not working with Ian? In theory, since Frank played BB14 and BB18, there is a possible connection between Davon and Janelle here. I would love to see these two ladies work together because I think they complement each other's games nicely. And if Davon works with Janelle or Ian, Enzo probably does too. So Kaser has lots of pivoting prowess because Janelle is on the season. If Janelle wasn't here, Kaser might be below Memphis. So this just goes to show how one ally can change your game trajectory exponentially. Kaser's ability to adapt an initial threat level score low with 2 stars. His knowledge of the game is a perfect 5 stars, but his pregame strategy and social likability each score 4 stars out of 5, giving Kaser a solid 17 stars out of 25, ladies and gentlemen. Will Kaser be content with Janelle's connections, or will he try to get his own numbers to leave her shadow? Will Kaser have a hard time working with the younger players, or will they be starstruck by him? Can Kaser figure out a way to make the end without Janelle if she gets taken out before him? We've technically never seen Kaser play without her, only her play without him. Please comment below and give me your thoughts regarding Kaser's game. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, he's got 2 stars in the ability to adapt, 5 in knowledge of the game, 4 in social game, 4 in pregame strategy, and 2 in initial threat level. All right. Now let's get to 10th place, ladies and gentlemen. In 10th place, with a tie with Kaser at 17 stars, we have Keisha, the woke waitress Smith, ladies and gentlemen. And no, I'm not giving her a fly nickname like that just because she's a Smith, contrary to popular belief. And yes, I was a major Keisha fan during the BB10 days. But once again, bias is not implied into this ranking system. Because trust me, Kaser would be top 5 if my bias applied. Do you feel what I'm saying, Coach Bernardo? Keisha is a huge fan favorite. Most never thought would get to play again. She's known for blowing up on people, but only when they really deserve it. She's super loyal to the soil and would do anything for her alliance. If you know her game, you know she was Dan's ride or die more than Memphis was. Let's keep it real. Dan wouldn't have had the jury management he had if it wasn't for Keisha. Keisha was to Dan how Trish was to Tony Vlachos on Survivor Cagayan. Whenever Dan broke his word or showed Memphis-like tendencies, Keisha would put out the fire. After BB10, Keisha and Dan even had a forbidden romance for a little while that all superfans talk about here and there in passing, but that's neither here nor there. Keep it strategy, Dave. Keisha kept Rennie in her pocket as a loyal number to form a 4 with the Renegades, Memphis and Dan. Keisha flipped on her alliance with April and Libra because she knew she was on the bottom and exchanged that for Dan's alliance. While I will commend her for the ability to adapt and flip and pivot, she basically flipped from being at the bottom of a 4-person alliance to being in 3rd place on a different 4-person alliance. Objectively speaking here, she probably had a better chance of winning at the end with Libra and April in hindsight. But that's Keisha's biggest flaw, romance. She's a sucker for it. Dan convinced her to play a game that cleaned his game up, which also dirtied hers up. Most people forget the nomination roulette as a plan only worked because of Keisha. Keisha was so close to April and Ollie at that time that it was actually believable that all of it happened at once on the fly. A lot of people don't remember that detail. So this not only shows Keisha can keep a secret, but that she's super cutthroat. She has a prototypical game for a good All-Stars player. The reason she scores higher than Memphis with the same pregame issues he has is simple. More people love Keisha and more people hate Memphis. I mean, likability is part of the ranking. That is what it is. With limited options for both being their dependent variables, Keisha is the one who socially can get along with more people, especially the women. And since all the men on this season will remember Keisha's ride or die mentality towards keeping Dan safe in BB10, they should also be quick to trust Keisha in a blindside, knowing she has good judgment and game sense on when to flip. Her ability to adapt and social likability are easily perfect scores of 5 stars each. Her knowledge of the game and pre-game strategy are both average at 3 stars, but she benefits greatly from having a low threat level and only playing once a long time ago, 10 years ago to be exact. So she only has a 1 star when you talk about immediate threat level, giving Keisha a solid 17 stars out of 15, allowing her to win the tiebreaker with Kaser despite having less knowledge of the game due to her perfect social game and ability to pivot under pressure. Will Keisha allow Memphis to ruin her social game, or will she charge his ass to the game? Does Keisha have a pregame deal with Ian Terry? Does Keisha have a deal with Janelle? Does Frank Udi connect Keisha in any way to Davon? Comment below and give me your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm really thinking right here, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Now, once again, in the ability to adapt, she got 5 stars. Knowledge of the game, 3 stars. Social game, 5 stars. Pre-game strategy, 3 stars. Initial threat level, 1 star. Now, in ninth place, ladies and gentlemen, with 18 stars, who I believe is also part of a tie, we have Nicole the Rat Queen Franzel, ladies and gentlemen. Now, she might be married to Victor by now. She might have a different last name, but that's the last name we're given right now. All right, so that's the last name she getting. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not gonna hide my disdain for Nicole. If this was biased, she would be bottom 5 right now. She would definitely not be on the cusp of top 8. All right, I want that to be stated because I despise her. All right. She didn't deserve to win BB18 in my opinion, and if she wouldn't have won that, BB19 wouldn't have been so terrible because Paul would have had his win already. So I blame Nicole for 2 straight bad seasons. And outside of that, I just don't see any redeemable qualities in her gameplay. Hence why I call her the Rat Queen. If I don't like Andy Herron's game, why would I like Nicole's game? It's that simple, coach. It's that simple. You know, now, rumors before this season started suggested she may have kept Dan and Derek off for having a pregame alliance with each other, ladies and gentlemen. Now, while I am aware that this is mere speculation, she is such a rat, we all kind of believe the rumor to be true anyway, because that seems to be well within her character to do that. So I want to mention that for context. So if you hear any jokes about Nicole snitching on anyone to production, you'll know it's a running joke from that original joke. Now, Nicole played in BB16 with Derek and Cody, where she was completely outplayed at every turn. And with Cody returning from BB16 and also being on this season, most people expect them to work together. I think the best thing for Cody's game is working with Davon, not the Rat Queen. If Nicole is ever in trouble, she will give up Cody quicker than Bailey gave up during the challenge final. Oh, shit. Exposed, ladies and gentlemen. Nicole only won BB18 because the women in the jury decided a woman needs to beat a man in Final 2. So she didn't even win because she played well. She won because the jury became feminists. Let's keep it real. Nicole is also the type of player who is nowhere near as good without a man to use as her showman shield. But now that she's with Victor, I don't see a scenario where she makes it further in the game than she did her first season. The only returning winner I think that has a chance here to win is Ian, and that's based solely on his connections pregame. Nicole could work with Davon because they worked well together before during BB18, but Davon also got turned on by Nicole as well that season. So it'll be very interesting if Davon falls for the same game a second time, or if she charges Nicole to the game like Keisha could do to Memphis. Since Nicole relies on so much to go her way on accident, I can't rank her any higher than where she is right now, even as a champion. It will also be interesting to see if the two Nicoles target each other, seeing how I've been well documented in showing my audience how people hate playing with other people who share the same names as them. You know, I think there was a season where there was 2 women named Stephanie, and they were at each other's head, boy. I'm telling you, bro. They both did whatever they could to get rid of the other one. You know. Now, Nicole's ability to adapt and pregame strategy both have average scores of 3 stars. Her knowledge of the game is a perfect 5 stars, but her social likability take a massive hit without the prospect of a showman's to buy her time in the game. Her initial threat level is as high as possible at 5 stars as a returning winner as well. Excuse me, giving Nicole a solid 18 stars out of 25, ladies and gentlemen. So, can Nicole play without a boy toy? Can her rat based gameplay even work in an all star season when everyone has their antennas up? Why would anyone trust her? If her best chance at becoming a 2 time winner involves aligning with Davon, how does she earn Davon's trust back? Does Enzo even allow Davon to fall for Nicole's bullshit a second time? Comment below and give me your thoughts on Nicole the Rat Queen, ladies and gentlemen. So, in the ability to adapt, I gave her a 3. Knowledge of the game, 5. Social game, 2. No one likes her. Pre-game strategy, 3. And initial threat level, 5, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's get to 8th place, ladies and gentlemen. At 8th place, who won the tiebreaker versus Nicole the Rat Queen Franzel, we have Cody the Detonator Calafiore with 18 stars, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Cody is a puzzling choice by production. Clearly, he was chosen for the lady fans because I just can't see someone deserving a second chance after blowing away their first chance. Cody and BB17 pulled a woo from Survivor by not taking Victoria to Final 2 over Derek. I'd argue both Cody and Woo have hooked up with tons of Hollywood opportunities in exchange for losing their seasons on purpose, though. So that's that connection with CBS Viacom. But anyway, Corey was a player with an impeccable social game. He would woo any woman, no pun intended. He was Memphis, but with a social game. He had the ability to hold a grudge like Memphis and had to be recentered by a better player just like Memphis as well. And just like how Dan kept enemies of Memphis around to keep him close, Derek did the same thing with guys like Caleb, who Cody couldn't stand. This is important for me to mention. That way, when the season starts, we can see how far Memphis and Cody have come from who they were their first seasons. Technically, Cody only has one more option to pivot with than Memphis on day one, but that one extra option, on top of his clear social game prowess, is the difference maker in why he's ranked higher than BB18's champion. Cody really is the most all around male player of the season, besides Tyler. But being all around comes with a never ending target on your back, and that's also why he can't score any higher than he has as well. Cody is stuck in the middle of the pack because he does a lot well, but he doesn't do enough amazing things to dominate an All-Stars, in my opinion. The best All-Stars are the smartest All-Stars. That's why my bottom 8 is considerably less decorated for being intelligent or making big moves than my top 8. If Nicole's game is a little flawed because she needs a showmance to unlock her Rat Queen abilities, Cody is similar because he may not be able to keep his emotions in check to keep his social game flawless without a Derek to bring him back down to earth. Everybody needs that one friend that tells them when they tripping, right? Well, Cody might not have that this season, and that's why his trajectory is in the middle of the pack on my ranking system. Cody's best case scenario is if Nicole and Davon work together. That gives him 2 women as allies, and he can work on finding the guy to add to that team. Problem is, if your best case scenario involves the Rat Queen in any way, you might be dead on arrival, coach. I just got to keep it a bean. Your game might be dead because you can't rely on her. I'm sorry, you can't. I scored Cody 3 stars at his ability to adapt, knowledge of the game, and pregame strategy. He got a 4-star in initial threat level and a perfect 5 stars in his social game and likability rating, giving Cody a solid 18 stars out of 25, and he wins the tiebreaker with Nicole because she is a former winner, and that naturally gives her a lesser chance of winning the season. Why did Cody decide to play this season? If he's making good money acting, did production bring him back to help someone else win this season? Does Paulie's connection to the challenge at all link Cody to Bailey? Could Cody and Memphis work well together? Comment below and give me your thoughts on Cody's game. What do you see in his future, ladies and gentlemen? So like I mentioned, he has 3 stars in the ability to adapt, 3 in knowledge of the game, 5 in social game, 3 in pregame strategy, and 4 in initial threat level. Now let's move on over to 7th place, ladies and gentlemen. At 7th place, in the Recency Bias Radio exclusive roster update, ladies and gentlemen, we have Janelle G.I. Janie Pierzina, ladies and gentlemen, with 19 stars. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, Janelle deserves to be top 8. I don't care what anyone says. Her BB14 performance, look, it matters. But at the same time, though, that was a while ago. I personally believe outside of the first time she's played, she was a completely different player in 14. Now, a lot of that had to do with the coach twist, which we'll get into. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, I want people to understand the Janelle I expect to see, the reason why she's ranked so high has a lot to do with the fact she's coming into this game with Kaser. She didn't have Kaser in 14. You feel me? There are certain people, when they have certain people, they're a different monster, right? When Scottie Pippen, when he got Jordan next to him, oh my God. He looking like a superstar. Now, for one season, he was a superstar because he almost had the Bulls in the finals without Jordan. But you see my point, ladies and gentlemen. Some people can rise to the occasion that were once role players. They can become stars if given the opportunity. Now, Janelle is truly the most impactful player of all time. Yes, I said it. She inspired young women everywhere and showed them you can be tough physically as a competitor, but be beautiful at the same time. She broke barriers. She single-handedly changed the blonde woman archetype forever on Big Brother. Can we keep it a bean? She changed that shit forever. But with that said, she also has struggled under pressure with making big game moves. In her original season, she got caught up in playing personal because the twist of the season was personal. To an extent, I give her a pass for that because that season made me into a fan. But where she went wrong was AllStars. Production gave BB6 such a huge advantage that season with tons of numbers. It truly is a demerit on Janelle's record that none of them won that season. What I mean by this is her and Kaser made several terrible moves that set Janelle up to fail later down the line. They honestly believed Chilltown were shields for them, but they were shields for Chilltown. You feel what I'm saying? If they would have just targeted Chilltown or at least broke them up and took Will out earlier in the game, Boogie has no chance. Like, Will was Boogie's buffer. Like, the same way I say that Memphis had to rely on Dan for his social game to work because he's kind of grading on women, that's the same problem Boogie has without Will. He's the snake charmer, bro. Like, like Will could show up anywhere and he'll make a lady laugh. And that is a trait that is really hard to find. And that's why Chilltown works so well together. The synergy, the yin and the yang. Now, Will talked Janelle into turning on her best friend Marcellus for no reason. That move in itself made her look bad. But then when you add the context of them never reconciling with James Rhine, you have a clusterfuck of massive proportions here. And to be fair to James, I wouldn't trust these people either after they targeted him in BB6 for no reason. Wasn't that Howie's fault, though? Howie. I rock with Howie. I heard he may have passed away. If he did, rest in peace, my guy Howie. Howie's another reason why I'm a huge fan of this game. Sup, K, sir? Jamie! Like, the dude is hilarious, man. So I hope those rumors weren't true. I heard that years ago, though. For all I know, he could be alive and well. But Janelle is a legend, no question. But I want her to play more cerebral and less physical as she gets older. Unfortunately, she failed at trying that in BB14. But once again, there was no Kaser there, and there was a Boogie there. She was set up to fail, basically. And Boogie made sure she wouldn't outlast him. But in him playing so personal, he never saw Ian coming of age ready to stab him in the back as soon as the coach twist ended. So what I'm hoping from Janelle is for her to play this slow. She will have production on her side for at least a week or two. She should focus that time solely on the social game and try to downplay her comp prowess. Her best case scenario is an alliance with Ian. From there, she can build. And since Davon and Nicole played feminist based games in 18, it's not a reach to suspect a woman's alliance is possible this season because the women have better social players. Janelle scores 3 stars in her ability to adapt and knowledge of the game. She scores a perfect 5 stars in social game and likability, and 4 stars each in pregame strategy and threat level, giving Janelle a solid 19 stars out of 25, ladies and gentlemen. Now, will Janelle grow as a strategic player, or will she revert back to the style of play that made her into a legend by just focusing on comps? Is she willing to betray Kaser for an all-women's alliance? Is Ian and Kaser combined enough strategic acumen to make up for Janelle's flaws in strategy? Could Kevin Campbell be to Janelle what Marcellus was supposed to be in the first AllStars? Please comment below and give me your thoughts on Janelle's game, ladies and gentlemen. See, I'm trying to make y'all think because that's what I'm here to do. You know. Now, in the ability to adapt, Janelle gets 3 stars. Knowledge of the game, 3 stars. Social game likability, 5 stars. Pre-game strategy, 4. Initial threat level, 4. Just a quick recap. Now, in 6th place, let's get to the top 6, ladies and gentlemen. Birdman hand rub. That's Thanos hand rub. We have Ian the Game Bot Terry, ladies and gentlemen. The Forbidden One, ladies and gentlemen. The dude who no one really wants to see in the late game, because once it comes down to counting days, you're counting your lucky stars if you still in the game. You really dig me, coach? Now, and I rhymed on accident there. Now, Ian Gamebot Terry has 20 stars, ladies and gentlemen. Now, ask yourself, how good is this top 5 if number 6 is 20 out of 25? If y'all have followed the way I break down these rankings based off the numbers, you know it's very rare to have 6 people above 20, coach. But that's what we got. We got 6 people 20 and above. Every player moving forward scored 20 stars on my recency bias radio updated roster. That means each of these remaining players, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they won the season. Ian is the only winner I can see becoming the first ever 2-time winner. Problem is, he won't be able to benefit from the same under the radar strategy pre-jury that helped him so much in BB14 with the coach's twist. Now Ian has to hold his own nuts, coach. But the best part about all of this is the fact that Ian, along with several other players, now have the chance to prove their first season wasn't a fluke, and that they would be just as dominant in any other era. Ian technically is from a previous era, but since BB15 was so trash, and since Ian won at such a young age, it's almost like we're getting an entirely new person that doesn't feel too old, almost like he's a current era player. Ian can relate to the older generation of gameplay and the new style because he isn't that much older than the new style players. And since he's already had the luxury of playing with Dan and Janelle, he already has seen the highest level of play possible. So the path BB22 goes down won't surprise him in either direction, making Ian one of the most dependable players to bet on making the jury, in my opinion, even as a returning winner. He has too much direct connections and enough secondhand connections that make him a clear power player. If he wasn't a former winner, he probably would be in my top 5. But since he has one and will have a winner's target on his back, I just can't rank him above hungrier players with skill sets that can give Ian's GameBot style trouble. Enzo could be a huge hurdle strategically and socially for Ian to conquer. Also, a player like Tyler might prove to be a huge threat to Ian's game late game. But conversely, someone like Kevin Campbell could prove to be a huge asset to Ian's game because Kevin worked very well with Ronnie Talbot in BB11. Also, there's a chance Nicorical could be starstruck by an Ian, and she could drop David for Ian's alliance as well. This season could be very fluid and intricate, depending on who gets the power first, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Ian's got to find players that cover the social game so he could focus on being the game bot that he is. It's really that simple. That should be his main strategy before anything else. Ian scores a perfect 5 stars in knowledge of the game, pre-game strategy, and initial threat level as a returning winner. His social and likability only gets him a 1 star though, and his ability to adapt is 4 stars, giving GameBot Ian an elite 20 stars out of 25. Now, will Ian work with Janelle and Kaser, then build from there? Will he try to start a nerd alliance with both Nicole's and David? Will Kevin work with Ian and then cut him during a double eviction? Will Enzo allow Ian to even make jury? Will his connection with Frank Udi get him in good with Davon? Comment below and give me your thoughts on Ian Terry, ladies and gentlemen. So to recap this score, he's got a 4 in the ability to adapt, 5 in knowledge of the game, 1 in social game likability, 5 in pregame strategy, and another 5 in initial threat level. This dude is a problem. If he can make it past the pre-jury stage and the game becomes more individual and less scary, because everyone made the jury at this point, boy, Ian is a yoke artist. You better listen. He gonna get it cracking. That's all I gotta say. But anyway, in 5th place, ladies and gentlemen, who just missed out on the top 4, ladies and gentlemen, with 22 stars, we have Tyler, the Lifeguard Jesus Crispin, ladies and gentlemen. And look, anyone who's been following my channel for years, you know I don't rock with this cat. I got him and his fake showmance, the mustache mistress. I got them so butthurt, they blocked me on Twitter on my previous Twitter account. That's how mad they were, because I was calling them out. All right? And usually people, and it's not like I ever tagged him in a tweet or nothing, so that means he looked for me to block me, which lets me know people are snitching. But that's neither here nor there. People gonna snitch on who's great. It is what it is. If you ain't popping, they ain't worried about you. You feel dig me? But anyway, my history with breaking down Tyler's game is well documented. While all these other platforms nut-hugged him at every turn during BB20, I was the one calling him out for getting special treatment from production. I may not have liked some of Tyler's tactics and how coddled he was by production, but I never denied he was an elite player. For me to rank him in my top 5 is all the proof you need that this is an unbiased roster update from Recency Bias Radio. Lifeguard Jesus comes into this season arguably as the biggest threat available. He's the guy almost everybody likes, but with that clout comes lots of pressure to do well on BB22. If Tyler flames out and becomes the first boot, he won't be able to ever live this down. Do I think production will allow this guy to be the first boot, though? Not at all. But right now, if you were to ask the majority of superfans their prediction on who's the most likely first boot, most will tell you Tyler because it just doesn't make sense not to target him for everyone's best interest besides maybe Bailey this season. Everyone else should want him gone. That's just how I feel, unless they got a pre-game alliance with him. Now, Lifeguard Jesus is going to need tons of twists for this season because all his lies that worked on BB20 versus recruits ain't gonna fly on AllStars here. All that fake crying he did won't work either. And he doesn't have women willing to cover for him like he had Rachel, Casey, and Angela doing. And he definitely won't have that racist punk-ass JC being his little rat running around either. So if Ian has to hold his own nuts pre-jury, please believe Tyler got to hold the balls and the shaft, coach. I got to keep it a bean with y'all tonight. I got to keep it a bean. Now, and since production worked so hard to overhype Tyler, I'd argue they set him up to be an even bigger trophy for someone to eliminate. Tyler no doubt expected to have Casey and Josh by his side, but now he doesn't. This forces him to recalibrate every facet of the game he's about to play. Josh was recruited to be his JC. Casey was going to do what she always does. In production, they were hoping and praying that Bailey would become his new Angela. Now all he's got is the one woman he said he didn't need a vote from in BB20. I mean, this is poetic justice. This is like watching a bully who goes to the park and picks on the one kid by himself with his friends and they jump him. This is like watching that kid who finally gets caught lacking by themselves at the park, right? This is like that great moment. Oh, we finally got him. It's time, baby. I sat through 90 days of bullshit during BB20 for this very moment here. I got my popcorn ready this season, and I can't wait to see Tyler get sent to the Shadow Realm. You feel me? Look, listen, bruh. Look, being a lifeguard ain't gonna save you in the Shadow Realm. I'm gonna keep it. And production can't enter the Shadow Realm. Clearly, they can't. But even though I'm clearly rooting for him to fail, that doesn't mean I don't clearly see his best scenario here. Tyler needs a damn witch doctor, coach, to win this season. Just making jury might be an accomplishment for him when you look at this cast. And since his best case scenario involves Bailey playing out of her mind for 4 weeks straight so he can make jury, he may need to pivot on day one to save his own ass. In BB20, Tyler did well with the majority alliance. He won't have that unless someone recruits him into their alliance for him to be on the bottom. So his best case scenario is if the game is so unpredictable, no one is loyal to anybody. He needs a game so chaotic that people lose sight of how threatening he is. Only way I see that working is if Enzo works with Tyler, and the only way that happens is if Enzo sees Tyler as Hayden 2.0. Conversely, Tyler's only option is if he goes full new era and starts an alliance with Bailey, Nicorical, and David. This 4-person alliance might work because these 4 all need each other for the same reasons. Bailey and David both have low expectations and are probably the least worthy of all-star status. Nicole Anthony and Tyler, on the other hand, both suffer from recency bias and need each other to shield each other from the older crop of players. Tyler scores a full 5 stars on knowledge of the game, social and likability, and threat level. He scores 4 stars on ability to adapt, but where he scored the lowest is 3 stars for pregame strategy since he lost his pregame alliance to COVID. Sucks to be you! Giving Lifeguard Jesus an elite 22 stars out of 20, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that's impressive right there. Would Enzo do a Brigade 2.0 with Tyler, Memphis, and Cody? Would Tyler align with all the new school players to guarantee he makes jury? Is Bailey mature enough to play well enough, long enough for Tyler to gain his footing? Will production ruin this season with Twist trying to help Tyler make the jury? Comment below and give me your thoughts on the Lifeguard Jesus. Do y'all see this coming? Do y'all see some riggery happening for this guy? Because it feel like this dude is walking into a trap, bruh. Like you ever played Yu-Gi-Oh! And you about to summon a dope monster, and then your opponent's like, trap hole. And you be looking like, oh, like you be have that salty look on your face. Tyler essentially was willing to sacrifice Josh, Casey, and Bailey for his Egyptian Lifeguard Jesus card. And then production said, hey, COVID happened. You feel me? Homie got hit with a mirror force pandemic. Oh, the reference. The references. Oh, this is really good. Homie got hit with a mirror force pandemic. And now he's like, you know what, man? You win, man. Take my dual disc, man. Take my chips, coach. You feel it, dig me. I'll go see Pegasus next time. Tyler boy. Now, and the ability to adapt, ladies and gentlemen, Tyler has 4 stars. Knowledge of the game, 5 stars. Social game likability, 5 stars. Pre-game strategy, 3 stars. Initial threat level, 5 stars. Man, y'all got to keep it a bean with me. This is as good of a breakdown you're ever going to get on the internet, coach. Please, if you're watching this, please share this with every Big Brother fan that's hype about 22 as much as possible. I want to truly promote this because I really want more people to be in tune with the strategy. That way, when they watch it for entertainment, they can understand why the entertainment matters more. They understand the stakes. And if you understand the history behind a lot of these players, you understand where they're moving towards. And if you understand where they've been, you know where they can go. And that's what's so important about these WTFs. So please, once again, ladies and gentlemen, because I feel like there is no other platform that's breaking this down. They'll give you like thoughts or just random opinions on the cast as a whole, but they won't break down each individual player and what their skill set dictates and what their win conditions dictate. They don't go that deep, and that's because the majority of these people, they're not really passionate about this game the way I am. That's why I get so angry about certain stuff, whereas other people are like, hey man, chill, calm down. It's because at the end of the day, bro, I truly have a love and passion for the strategy of it, bro. Like it's different with me. And that's why the way I take things is different. So, hey, look, it's a gift and a curse sometimes, but I'm back, baby. I got the 45 jersey on, and y'all can't even knock how I'm getting buckets right now. Look, I'm going off right now. Now, in fourth place, ladies and gentlemen, with 23 stars that just kept Lifeguard Jesus out of the top four, we got none other than Danny the Khaleesi Donato. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Danny Donato was in my top four. You got a problem with it? Look, we can scrap. You got a problem. We can scrap. You got a problem with this. All right? Listen. This is the princess who was promised, Azor Ahai. Let's keep it a bean right now. All right? Danny Donato is probably the most strategic woman I've ever seen play multiple seasons. Yes, I wrote that in notes. I said that. Now, she was carried by her father in her first season. Disclaimer, I'm aware of that. But she also was very smart that season because she knew when to blame her actions on her father. Jamaica began to catch on to this pattern, but by the time she did, there was no one left to help her but Zach. And let's be real, Zach, ED was so smart to drag Zach to the end. Zach thought, I got this figured out. ED's an old man. I'm going to beat him in the endurance. I'm going to beat him in trivia. You didn't even beat him in endurance, coach. Didn't beat him in endurance. And let's be real, if Zach just wins that endurance comp, he probably wins the game because he probably deals with Danny in the third round. You never know. But most likely Danny probably throws it to her dad so he can win trivia. I don't know. Listen, from a father-daughter perspective, BB8 is the closest thing to The Last of Us 1 we'll ever see. Let's just keep it a bean. But anyway, Danny's nickname is the Khaleesi for a reason. She is the breaker of games, okay? Not chains, of games. The breaker of games. All right, somebody record this sound bite and send it to me because that's clean. I wrote that tongue like a savage, coach. But anyway, the Queen of Dragons. She is the woman who flipped BB13 on its head by convincing rookies to blindside Brendan. Now, LeBron technically ruined that move because he basically voluntarily swapped with Brendan, which screwed Danny's game because she was forced to take Brendan out again before she could target Rachel. And that's one of the many reasons why Rachel won that season and why Danny got targeted later. But at the end of the day, coach, I need y'all to understand that that was magnificent of her to pull off that move. You know? And if Lawan would have just been replaced with a competent black man, now I'm aware that there was a straight black man on that season in Keith, and he was the first boot, and ED didn't get along with him, and ED thought he was a little too uppity, and now ED invites him on his channel over and over again because he feels some guilt about that racist move. I know the whole backstory behind that, all right? And no, I'm not calling ED racist. I'm just saying the move itself, you should know better than to make a black man the first boot. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, you know? Like, it would be real easy for me to go off on ED, but honestly, bro, like, the older I get, the more I'm starting to get the method to his madness a bit. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, production labeled Danny the villain for turning on their pets. But once her father left the game, she had no reason to stay loyal to both couples. She knew no matter what, she was on the bottom of the Vet 5. What made her so good was that she didn't wait for the last second to flip like a lot of modern day players do. She flipped instantly, which put the vets on the back foot and gave every single rookie a fighting chance to win the season. Just like Daenerys Targaryen liberated the people and they believed in her enough to join her in taking over the Seven Kingdoms. That's what Kalia and Portia did after Danielle put them on game. They carried that torch and almost beat Rachel and Jordan together if it wasn't for a rigged pair twist that they had to create, production had to create out of their ass to guarantee that the person they wanted to win won. Let's keep it real. Kalia or Portia deserved to win that season. And it's not, look, anyone who has seen that season multiple times, you know Kalia and Portia were robbed hard. You know, like we could have had our first black winner right there with Kalia if she wasn't robbed so hard, right? But anyway, so understand, Danny ranks higher than Tyler for a reason. She can play from the bottom or from pole position. She can rally the troops or keep them on the same path. She can boost your morale or she can pivot and burn you alive. She is who people say Vanessa Russo is. No lies detected. I'm gonna piss off some Vanessa fans. Here we go. No disrespect to Vanessa Russo, but she did a lot of crying instead of owning her game that season. Let's keep it a bean. Danielle played that way when she was 21, not a grown-ass woman who's a poker player. The game Danny played when she just became legal to drink alcohol is virtually the same game Vanessa played that lost to Steve Moses. No lies detected, let's continue. When you truly break it down, pound for pound, with nothing rigged, Danny just might be the greatest woman to never win the game. I'm sorry, but Vanessa Russo ain't doing what Danny did in BB13, coach. Can we keep it a bean? Can we keep it a bean? She's not doing it. Danny has a lot of ways she can play this season out, and that's because her game isn't reliant on physical strength. She can play things slow, or she can come out the gates winning HOH so she can set the pace. Because she has so many different tools in her locker that she has used successfully without production's help, there's no way I can rank Tyler above her, because his entire game from BB20 was very reliant on twists and production. Danny has been Danny has been seen places with Davon. She's taken pictures with her. So the alliance we never knew we needed but always wanted is very possible. Also, there's a high chance Danny could work with Janelle and Keisha as well. Keisha played in between both of Danny's seasons, so them knowing each other isn't a stretch. As for Janelle, most women Danny's age love Janelle around the time of BB-8, so it's very likely Danny may have a pregame alliance with Janelle and Kaiser herself. Danny is the true wild card of this season. I personally would like to see her work with Kevin because their games complement each other really well. She is really the only player I could see work with any player on the season. For that reason alone, she's top 4. Danny scored a perfect 5 stars in adaptation, game knowledge, and pregame strategy. She scored 4 stars in both social game and threat level, giving the Khaleesi of Big Brother the breaker of games in elite 23 stars out of 25. Will Danny look to assemble a rebel army to take on the majority alliance? Will she work with Janelle or Keisha? Does she hate if she hates Rachel and Brendan just like Enzo does? Could her and Enzo be the unstoppable duo of the season? Comment below and give me your thoughts on Danny the Khaleesi Donato. So once again, ability to adapt 5 stars, knowledge of the game 5 stars, social game likability 4 stars, pregame strategy 5 stars, initial threat level 4 stars. Let's just call it what it is, man. She's part of one of the first families of Big Brother. It is what it is, coach. You don't like it? Tough luck. Now let's get to third place, ladies and gentlemen, who is in a two-way tie with Danny Donato with 23 stars, but just edged her out. For reasons I will explain, we have Davon Rogers, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Miss Davon Rogers. Now, I got to be real with y'all, man. I wasn't that sold on Davon being a good Big Brother player, but what she's recently done on the challenge, it has changed my mind on her. It has given me a 180, and I will break this down with further context. In third place, we have the most improved Big Brother player turned challenger of all time in Davon. I got to be honest, her Big Brother resume isn't all that impressive. She was a pre-jury boot in BB17 because she couldn't keep her emotions in check. In BB18, she changed her strategy up a bit, but she was also massively helped by production, along with all the other vets. Besides Frank, Davon performed the worst compared to Nicole and Asian James. Some of this was her fault and some of it wasn't. I'm mentioning this to show y'all the journey she took. Because after 18, her and Jose went to the challenge and they did very well. Matter of fact, Davon did really well each time she was on MTV up until she retired after dealing with some racist drama. On the challenge, she showed a more patient political game I never saw from her on Big Brother. I know the games are vastly different, but I truly believe that experience gave Davon some clarity and allowed her to self-reflect. I expect BB22 Davon to be her Ultra Instinct form. And based off the cast, it's safe to say Davon has the most power on day one. And I've been saying this from day one, right? First time I saw this cast, I was like, ooh, Davon, she's the power player. She's the power player. She has so many different angles to pivot in. It's ridiculous. She's out there looking like, listen, she out there looking like God, Sham God. The type of angle she could pivot in, coach. You feel it, Demi? She got the triple threat on deck. You feel what I'm saying? Now, after doing some research, I found out she's really cool with Enzo as well. I doubt most players this season will know that. Also, Davon gets along with Jason Roy. I'm not trying to imply all gay men are the same, but Kevin Campbell is much better than Jason Roy, and he's black, meaning Davon should be able to rock with him fairly easily because Jason Roy kind of benefits from the fact that he has been around black people. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to say he's appropriating. I'm just saying that Jason Roy clearly has been around a lot of black folks. That's why black folks rock with him, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to I already said that. Not only that, she also has ties to Cody through Paulie, and she has ties to Nicole as well from BB18. Not to mention the obvious connection to Bailey. When you look at this cast, Davon has the Infinity Stones, and Thanos approves of this message. But with great power comes great responsibility. Peter Parker's uncle said that. I wonder if David Alexander's uncle said the same thing. Ding! And I know, and for one, I am worried because once Davon walks in that house, it's her game to lose. Now I know what you're thinking. How is it her game to lose if you only ranked her in third place, Dave? Well, the two people ranked above her are more clinical Big Brother players under pressure, right? I'm using some of Davon's performance on the challenge to boost her up to third, but I know realistically, from a purist Big Brother standpoint, she can't be first, even with the most power on day one. And let's be honest, the majority of players with power on day one rarely ever win come day 90 something. So I'm showing y'all that there's a balance to the way I view this. My apologies. Hence why all of them scored so high in my unbiased worst to first. Davon has had ride or die. She's even played with other black women, but she has never played in the season where she has the most ties. Damn, I'm rhyming on accident. Someone with her skill set, with this early advantage with alliances, should be able to flourish as long as her allies carry the weight, ladies and gentlemen. Davon wins the tiebreaker with Danny Donato by having a perfect 5 stars in every category besides threat level, where she scored 3 stars, giving Day an elite 23 stars out of 25. So, will Davon recognize she's in the best position on day one? Will she work with Bailey or charge her to the game? Will she work with the old school players or will she keep it new school? Because technically, that's more so her era, ladies and gentlemen. Please comment below and give me your thoughts on Davon. Now, in the ability to adapt, 5. Knowledge of the game, 5. Social game, 5. Pre-game strategy, 5. Initial threat level, tray ball. Now, in second place, ladies and gentlemen, we in the top 2. Y'all have sat through, and now y'all ready. By now, our process of elimination, you know who the top 2 are. Now, the question is, who's number 2 and who's number 1? Let's get to it. At number 2, in second place, with 24 stars, 1 star away from the perfect player, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, we have Kevin Littlefinger Campbell, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Kevin is a player that comes once every 10 years. Till this day, there has been so many wannabe Kevins like Ramsey Soto and Lawan Exum, but none of them could carry Kevin's jockstrap. Let's keep it a bean here. This guy single-handedly made Jeff Schroeder look like a total recruit in BB11. This guy was forced to align with people called offbeats by production, and instead of letting production ostracize him with that twist and group, Kevin still found a way to pivot from the bottom to almost pulling off one of the most incomparable BB wins of all time. I mean, when I tell you this man, I'm trying to think, what would be a bigger upset than Kevin winning BB11 if you were to just take into account how that first month went? I don't know what would be a bigger upset than that. Maybe Buster Douglas knocking out Tyson? That's how it felt when he yoked Jeff Schroeder. That's how it felt. It felt like Buster Douglas, yeah, hit that boy one of them Soldier Boy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You feel it, dig me? Like he sent Buddy to the Shadow Realm. Anyway, if it wasn't for Kevin, believe it or not, we'd probably see a lot more Jeff on our TVs than we already do, because Jeff would have won the season if it wasn't for Kevin. This is important to mention because it shows Kevin, a lot like Danny, can play well from the bottom or the top. Kevin's game isn't reliant on having power either. It's reliant on information. This is why his nickname is Littlefinger. Kevin can instigate a war and not even get a drop of blood on his hands. Let's really keep it a bean. When you really look at Kevin's alliance in BB11, none of them were any good at the game, really, besides Jesse. I mean, and he got screwed by the coup d'etat. So Kevin showed us he can deliver a fatal blow to production's favorite from the bottom by just giving them some information. And what's so gold about this is, I'm sure production tried to interfere, but Kevin's game was so good, Jeff bought the bullshit anyway, and he didn't even listen to production. That lets you know your game is incredible. Because please believe, production did not want Jeff to go out like that. Let's be real. They didn't want that. And you can tell based off how hard they worked for Rachel to win that next season. You feel what I'm saying? Now, this is the same type of player I want on a season with Lifeguard Jesus. Because if production tries some funny shit, I will have the peace of mind to know there are players on this season that won't give up, that won't just keel over and let Tyler have his way, right? We have players who can pull off a dance funeral on this season. So every live vote is must-see TV for me because a blindside is possible every week. Kevin has lots of options, and with BB11 being so far removed, most people won't see him as a massive threat. He could work with Davon, or he could work with Danny. He could be Janelle's new Marcellus, or he could start his own Rebel Alliance and take down the current holders of power. In theory, he could work with just about anybody besides Memphis. Uh, I ain't trying to shit on you, Memphis. It was a joke. But no, seriously though, he has tons of options, and anytime you give an elite strategist tons of options, you're going to have tons of problems, coach. Kevin gets a perfect score across the board, similar to Davon, but he has 4 stars in threat level to her 3, giving Littlefinger an elite 24 stars out of 25, making him second place. Now, will Kevin play it slow until jury since his game is more deadly in that phase? Will he try to align with David Bailey and Davon in the attempt to show Black Lives Matter? Will he get into a fight with anyone this season? Please comment below and give me your thoughts on Kev, ladies and gentlemen, aka Littlefinger. Once again, 5 stars across the board, 4-star in initial threat level. Now in first place, by process of elimination, y'all know it has to be none other than the Meow Meow, Enzo Palumbo, with 25 stars out of 25. In my opinion, he is recency bias radio approved as the best player, arguably, that has never won the game heading into an all-star season. I've never seen a guy this much of a mastermind coming into a season, and I've already seen him play. And still there are people downplaying his skill set. It was tough deciding who the best player was this season, but in the end, I had to go with Enzo over Kevin. Enzo doesn't get enough credit for being the true mastermind behind the brigade. Most people attribute the credit solely to Matt Hoffman, but Enzo was smart enough to allow Matt to think he was the smartest in the group. Enzo was the one behind most of those fights Reagan had with Rachel. Enzo was behind everyone in the alliance having a +1 besides him. So ask yourself, why did Hayden need to get with Kirsten? Why did Matt need to get with Reagan? Why did Lane need to get with Brittany, but nobody ever gave Enzo orders to get with somebody? You see what I'm saying? That shows y'all who was running the show. Because he the only dude that ain't got to work as hard. You see what I'm saying? There's a reason why Hayden didn't take Enzo to Final 2 over Lane, y'all. It's because he knew Enzo played a masterful game. I'd argue Enzo and Anthony Douglas are almost the same player. That's going to be a type of take people ain't going to want to hear. But the truth is, if Anthony Douglas was white, I'm willing to bet you the majority of people would view him as the raw player he truly is. They would view him as Enzo. Difference is, he made the end. He wasn't robbed and didn't make the end. Enzo didn't make the end, technically. He was Final 3, didn't make Final 2, right? Anthony Douglas made Final 2, didn't even get a vote, even though he never touched a block, right? It was virtually the same game Enzo played, but Enzo would have won if he made the end, despite being next to Hayden. And I'd argue Dane was just a wannabe Hayden. You see, well, really, he was a wannabe, what's the dude from BB Can 1? Emmett. He's really a wannabe Emmett, but you get my point. The comparison is 1-to-1, all right? So yeah, so like I said, there's a reason why he didn't take Enzo to Final 2 over Lane. It's because he knew Enzo played a masterful game. People forget Enzo's game was so good, he told Matt to his face he would keep Lane over him, and Matt still stayed loyal to Enzo after that. Enzo is the most dangerous player because you can't get a read on what he's thinking. He mixes street savvy with game savvy in a way that's never been done before. Enzo played with Brittany Haynes in BB12, who played with Janelle in BB14. There's a chance he could be working with her, Kaser, and Ian as a result. So he not only has several options, along with all the players in the top 5, but he also has the killer instinct and awareness to sniff out a problem before it becomes one. This is why nobody ever targeted Enzo his entire season. He may have been the only person who Brendan and Rachel liked that they didn't know despised them. Think about that. He's really the only person they didn't know hated them. But they loved him. You see what I'm saying? This guy is the total package. Everyone on this season should fear the Meow Meow. Enzo is the first ever player to score a perfect 25 out of 25 before a season in 3 WTF rankings. By my recency bias radio exclusive scoring system, he is the most unstoppable player on this season, and he's played long enough ago to where his mastermind edit isn't fresh on anyone's mind. He's one of the only players besides Tyler with a full threat level without winning a season. But he's so superior to Tyler in every facet of the game besides winning comps. It doesn't even matter if he's a threat because his mouthpiece is so good, he can talk himself out of shit. And this is why, in my opinion, Enzo has the best chance of being the Big Brother 22 All-Stars champion. So, what are your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? Do you agree with the order of my list? Did you enjoy this video? If so, please don't hesitate to become a Recency Bias Radio patron because this is the last video of free content regarding Big Brother 22 All-Stars I will be putting on YouTube. Everything else moving forward will be accessible for only $5 a month. So if you can afford feeds, there's no reason why you can't afford supporting the brand. I'm just being honest, coach. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, and here's to hoping we get a great season. I'm Dave Smith, the mind behind Recency Bias Radio, where no one is safe from criticism. Until next time.